to tell the truth, I didn't know much about it. And at the end of the film, I still struggle with the definition of what forgiveness is. And what I wanted to present were the stories of these people and how this thing called forgiveness is even possible. And that's the curiosity that drove me to make the film, because I was in Rwanda and I was seeing these amazing people actually talk with the perpetrator, live by the side of the perpetrator, share a soda with the perpetrator, and I couldn't understand how a woman whose children were killed could share a soda with the perpetrator. So, and I didn't even know if it was real. So, so that's how I wanted to tell the story, in the way that I discovered what was going on. It's not prescriptive, as you can see. You have to make up your own mind. But what I've realized that the film does do is it makes you look inward. You know, although it's about these extreme cases and it's about extreme situations, mostly what people seem to come out with is, what is happening in my life? What am I doing? And, you know, do I need to forgive anyone? Do I need to talk to my parent who I haven't talked to in 15 years? I had a friend who's a super fan of this film, and he took, I think, I can't remember how many copies, but let's say he took 30 copies to both Israel and Palestine and gave it to people on both the sides. And he said that the reception to both, you know, on both sides was amazing. And he said there wasn't one person who didn't want to show it to another person. So I'm really thrilled with that. And he said, actually, he wrote on my Facebook page, he said, I would like to buy a copy and send it to every school on the planet. So a very flattering comment. I'm a bad advisor. Because one of the things about peace, and I was talking about this in an interview that just happened, is that it's the cessation of something. So it's rather boring. You know, it doesn't have the adrenaline and the excitement of violence, you know. So I think it's about the process of getting to peace that's really important. And the peace itself has to be something that you have to get used to.
I mean, I would just add to that. I talked about something yesterday, and I think it's this whole notion of social justice and what you do with your life. I think we all live by this kind of contradiction. We know there are billions of people around the world that live on less than $1 a day, and you know, a lot of us want to help. We want to change that, but at the same time, we also want to have a great house. You know, we want to have a decent car ultimately. And it's really finding that balance in our lives ultimately, to say, you know, how can I make a small difference, you know, starting in my community and then, you know, maybe your nation, and hopefully the world. So. You know, there's so many. I said one earlier today where he talked about, you know, a person is not born hating, a person is taught to hate. And if they can be taught to hate, then they can be taught to love. And I think that's, you know, something unique that you see in Lekha's film ultimately, is this reverse of almost ideology, of psychology, from an individual who's willing to sit around the table and engage in a conversation, a discussion, a dialogue about something that's traumatic in their lives, but understanding that the person sitting across from them, you know, is not that dissimilar from them, right? You know, they have goals, they have dreams, and they might have been forced into, you know, terrible situations, whether it's because of the crisis in their country or something personally that they were dealing with. And I think we all deal with this conflict on a daily basis. You know, whether it's waking up in the morning deciding what cereal you want to have, you know, or if it's something more difficult, like deciding what your passion is going to be in life. So.
I think that a lot of women I spoke to said that they didn't want the same violence that they had experienced for their children to experience. So they were exhausted in that sense by the violence, and they didn't want another generation to feel or go through the same thing. So in that sense, it does have a role in doing what in their lives. It was very significant and very hard. In the film industry, and this was a new thing to me, they say you have to kill your babies, meaning you have to kill the stories that you love the most. And I have 300 hours of footage, and each story is amazing. And I wanted to honor each story, talk about each person that's in there. But I had to distill and further distill and cut there was actually a wonderful romance between a Hutu girl and a Hutu boy and a Tutsi girl. And that looked like a romance that I'd made up because it was so beautiful, and so we had to scrap that, for example. but I have to tell more stories, is what I can see, and I have so much footage that I could do that, but I think I'll have to take a break before I do that.